Hello, this is Abby.
Dear Abby, this is gonna be a long one.
Oh boy.
Dear Abbey, how do you tell the difference between a new exciting crush and a rebound?
Does it matter?
Dear Abby.
Dear Abbey,
Dear Abby.
Welcome to our little corner of the internet. This is the Dear Abby podcast. I hope you stay and hang out with us. See you in a sec. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Dear Abby. My name is Abby. Welcome back to my podcast. I hope everybody's having a wonderful, beautiful day. Today, we are talking about a couple of things. First, we will do dubs and L's. Second, we will go into the details. Third, we will talk about... I was debating between two different topics. One of the topics was trying to shove yourself into a place that you don't fit anymore. But then I was reminded of something that I struggle with and have been struggling with lately, and that's black and white thinking with OCD. I wanted to talk about that and talk about the black and white thinking with OCD and the specifics of what that means. If you're not sure what I mean by that, sometimes when you have obsessive compulsive disorder, your brain thinks of everything as 100% or nothing. It's very all or nothing. One example, something I actually do struggle with is, let's say I go to church one week and somebody says something that I don't agree with. I don't know how I feel about it. And instead of it just kind of going in one ear out the other, and then I move on with my day as most do, when you have OCD, sometimes that one thing one person says that bugs you sticks in your head and replays over and over and over again because you've kind of taught your brain to stew and ruminate on these things that you're like, why didn't I agree with that? What does that mean? Does that mean I don't like going to my church? Does that mean I need to find a new church? Does that mean that everything that I've thought is wrong? Does that mean there's just so many layers? And that's one example, but it happens with my job. It can happen with a career. It can happen with a hobby. It can happen with your loved ones, your children, your family, where you live. It can literally attach itself to anything. That's what I wanted to talk about. Break that down, and then also some things that I have personally done to help at least notice when I'm thinking about things that way, and then help alleviate some of the stress and the distress that comes with the obsessing over that and not finding an exact answer. What's the answer? Which way is it? Do I love it? Do I hate it? Is it good? Is it bad? That type of thinking. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And it also will apply to if you don't have OCD and you know someone, it might be helpful to understand them. But also I'm going to talk about unconditional acceptance and the trusting part that comes in with OCD recovery, and really being able to accept the ups and downs of life and the confusing emotions and the conflicting emotions sometimes. That's really hard to accept sometimes, especially if you have OCD, but just in life in general. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And then we're going to do a Dear Abby. So let's get right on into it. If I didn't already say it, I hope you had a great week. This week has been fun for me. I've done a lot of writing, reading, just kind of stuff in my own head, which has been fun. I don't take that for granted because it used to not be fun to be thinking in my own brain. And I am grateful every day that I am able to have a space in my brain where I'm not absolutely horrified of everything that my brain thinks. That being said, to be transparent about, my personal OCD anxiety journey, I still have intrusive thoughts every single day. And sometimes it's right in the morning, I get a flood of them. And sometimes it's right before I go to bed. Sometimes it's in the middle of the day. It kind of just depends on the day. It depends on what's in front of me. I think sometimes I can feel frustrated that I still have intrusive thoughts because I wish that I didn't. Plain and simple. I just wish that I didn't have to deal with thoughts that I really do not enjoy having. But that is just my current condition, and I can accept that. And I think I've had to reassure myself, but not in a compulsive over and over again way, just recently, how that's the condition of OCD, that's and all the help that I've gotten. Every therapist I've talked to has never said you'll never have intrusive thoughts again. It's just you're going to learn how to handle them, and the frequency probably will go down, but we're not going to focus on that for now. So to jump into our L's for this week. One, I had a really awkward encounter. I've had multiple awkward encounters for some reason with people I knew like 15 years ago that randomly pop up that say hi, and then I'm so awkward sometimes when I see people that I used to know, like back when I was like a completely different person, and it just feels weird to see people like that. And so I just act nice and, kill them with kindness, because that's just like, when in doubt, just be really nice and like nice and complimentary. Also today, someone went for a handshake and I thought they're going for a hug. So then I went for a hug, and then they changed to go for a hug. But then I went to the handshake, and then I was like, I'm just going to give her a hug. So I gave her a hug. And it was just one of those weird things where it's not that big of a deal. And afterwards, I actually was proud of myself, because normally in social situations like that where I feel so like I did something so stupid, sometimes I'll replay it in my head over and over and over and over again, but I'm doing it on purpose. It's not like it's torturing me. Like, I'm doing it on purpose to hopefully make myself feel better about it. Or I tried to convince myself that it wasn't that bad instead, which I learned this from exposure response prevention, is sometimes I'm so scared of being awkward or doing something wrong socially, which I do all the time. So it's really ironic, but I just instead was like, I'm not going to be, that could be awkward. Maybe you made her feel awkward. Maybe you made other people feel awkward. Maybe you did something that was socially weird. Maybe you're going to get cut off from everybody because of that. You never know. But let's just sit in this. Let's just feel it. Let's feel the cringe. Let's feel all of it. And then eventually it went away. And then I felt better about it. And I was like, oh, yeah, that wasn't the end of the world, huh? She probably forgot about it. I already kind of forgot about it. But it was a good thing to practice, because I've had more social. I feel so stupid talking about this. But when I socialize more, I am a lot more in my head, which I've talked about, I know, on the podcast before. It's a common theme. And I really stress out about if I'm doing the normal social thing, or if I'm being nice enough, or if I'm being too nice, or like, what's the social norm, whatever. I overthink what the social norm is, but I've been trying to just be myself lately. And if I'm awkward, then I'm awkward. Then at least I'm having a true moment. I'm able to like put on the mask, or put on like the social mask. And I can like be really good at having conversations. I can be totally normal. I also don't love doing that, and I get really tired really fast. I have to work on both of those things, accepting that I don't have a really long lasting battery, and that's okay. I'm not lying about that. That's how I really am. And then also I can get better and better at, I can hone in on those skills. And then another L is probably, actually, I think that's my only L. I guess that was kind of two, but my dubs. Let's move on to my dubs. I bought it's called War of the Ring. It's like a Lord of the Rings board game. It's last time when I first played it, I've only played it once, I think. Did we play it twice? No, I only played it once. We played it once with my brother, and I played, okay, I don't know why I'm saying this so weird. I played it with my brother and my husband. We played it, and it took about 6 hours to play and finish the whole game. It was really fun. We played late into the night, early into the morning. So I bought it because there's some guy selling it for like $30, and I think the retail price is about $90, around 80 to 100. But so he was selling it for cheaper, and the box is a little bit like torn, but I don't really care too much about the box. Really, I just wanted to get all of the little miniatures that are in that, because I want to use it for our D&D game, and it's fun because they're all not painted or anything. So I primed some, and then I painted some because I want to work on my painting skills, like shadow, highlights, how do you paint a miniature, like a little D&D miniature. And they turned out really good, shockingly. I mean, there's like 100 something of them, so it's going to take me a long time to paint all of them, and I'm not too concerned about that. I mostly just wanted to practice and see what the vibes are, how good I would be at it, and they all turned out really good, and I was actually shocked. But I also watched a lot of YouTube videos, and something about me, and I think a lot of people that listen are probably similar to this. If I find a hobby or something that I want to do, I really just I get like the cheapest stuff available first, because I don't want to spend a bunch of money up front if I'm like not going to if I don't know I'm going to like to do it for a long time. I buy the cheapest stuff possible. I try it out after watching like 2 to 3 YouTube videos. YouTube is just Chef's kiss. It's amazing. So I watch YouTube videos of professionals, people who do this all the time, and then I learn about it, and then I actually practice it. And I start to practice really fast because that for me makes me feel like you just learn faster doing something, at least for me. I can kind of comprehend what people are saying, but when you're doing it, obviously you learn more. So I got into that, and then I started doing it, and I did it for hours and hours this weekend. I'm excited to keep painting, but I also have to prep for like our first, because we're just starting a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, and it's just been a lot of fun. So that's been a dub, learning how to paint those, and then getting more into that, and then also just planning and creating the world for that is really fun. I'm writing a lot, which is really fun. I didn't love English, but I liked writing. Like I liked learning how to write, and I also I've always enjoyed writing. So it's been a really fun way for my brain to be occupied with using all of its OCD, like imaginative scenarios, and hone all of that energy and shape it into creativity with world building and painting and character creations and all that fun stuff. So it's been like a good place to put my creative energy into, and it's been a lot of fun. I want to like start making more YouTube videos of that, but my vlog camera broke, and this camera is huge, so I cannot use this as a vlog camera. It would be a pain in my butt. So maybe one day when I make a little bit more money, I'll buy a vlog camera, and then I can start vlogging just my crafts again, because I love doing that. I also thought if I ever stopped the podcast, I would probably just do YouTube, because I still like having an outlet of some sorts. And YouTube, I think, is just fun and creative, and you can do whatever you want. Not that I am, but if I ever do, just know that I'm probably not going to be gone forever. I probably would just go on YouTube. Those are my dubs and L's. So let's now get into the details. I was struggling to pick between a couple of things that I was thinking about, but I finally picked one. I thought of it when I was on my stationary cycling bike, like my stationary bike. I've talked about cycling a bunch. You guys all know that I cycle, but I've been doing my own classes, like to myself in my head, because you know how cycling classes are like uppy and you're rhythm riding and you're going to the beat of the music, which is really satisfying. I've been doing that more, but I used to watch videos, but now I'm doing it for myself. I just kind of choose a playlist, and then I just follow the beat of the music. And if it's fast and it's a fast song and I do more sprints, I'll do little intervals of up and down or sitting, standing, you know, what you would do in a cycling class. And I usually do it for like 30 minutes. If I have good enough songs, those 30 minutes fly by. Sometimes the reason I honestly changed my YouTube is because I needed songs that kept my attention, because I struggle with cardio so much. I always have. Even when I was on the swim team, my coach was like, we need to get you something that expands your lungs, because you are so bad with like breath work and like your lung capacity is really small. I said, awesome. And I did realize that it was pretty bad comparatively to other people. And I do feel that when I'm running or when I'm doing any cardio, I just struggle to take good breaths. And that I think I can help improve that with yoga, meditation, but also cardio. Like my cardiovascular system is a great place to start with that as well. And I feel like it helps my singing when you do cardio and you learn how to take big breaths and you have more power with your breathing. It can help like your singing as well. So that's kind of fun to play around with. But long story short, I was cycling yesterday, just doing my thing, rhythm riding, vibing to the music. And I basically motivate myself in my head, like as if I'm in a class, like things they would say. I don't know if I would ever teach a class, but I think it would be really fun. There was a song. The song is called Lighter by, Lighter by David. It's David Guetta. I don't know if that's how you say his name. 5 Seconds of Summer. That's what's random. I loved them because I watched them open for One Direction a long time ago. And then Galantis. Anyways, it's a great cycling song or running song because it's super beat heavy, because the bass is super fun and it keeps a good beat. So I was on the ride and this song comes on, and the song is so upbeat, so feel good, so happy sounding. And so I started to treat that song like a hill, like you're climbing a hill. where you put more resistance and then you get a little bit further into the song, and then at a certain spot where the beat drops or something, you turn the resistance super high and you keep trying to keep the same pace but with more resistance, because you're trying to climb that hill, and keep that keep the momentum. And at the end, you're like, it feels like you're trudging through super thick mud, but my muscles and my lungs and everything is so tired, but they feel so good afterwards. So I guess both of the things that I'm extremely just like that is an extremely beautiful part of life is that feeling of working my butt off and getting a really good workout in, moving my body, making me feel strong, like getting my body strong and working on my cardiovascular health, and the feeling after a climb like that, or a really hard song, or where you actually leave everything on the table, feels so rewarding and feels so good. And most of the time I don't feel like getting on the bike. I don't feel like doing it. Like I'm like, because I think I could just watch like my show that's comfy and it's comfortable and I know it'll make me feel happy and good. But because I've done the cycling for so long now, I know that I will feel better if I do the cycling versus just watch like a show, or it's 30 minutes of my time and I feel like a world of difference throughout my week when I do it. And I'm grateful that my brain has now realized that. So it is more motivating. So it motivates me more to do it, not in like I feel motivation, but it just knows that I'm going to feel better after. So it kind of reminds me of that. But also I'm just grateful for the feeling of when the beat drops and you get a surge of energy, just how music can help motivate you and how music can help you get through harder parts of a workout. I can go back and forth on, I like loud music with cycling because it's really, really hard for me still to do it and to actually push through a full 4 minutes of a really intense climb and super heavy resistance, but you're still moving your legs really fast. And that music is so supportive of that. Sometimes I try to do no music just to test that out and just to make sure that I will still push myself even if I'm bored. So there's like a fine line for that for me, that I try to use both, but most of the time I just like the music. Like it's just like my 30 minutes that I can have fun, dance and vibe to the music. I don't care anymore about looking silly or feeling silly, like dancing on a bike to music alone in my closet in the dark, because it makes me happy and I feel free for just like that 30 minutes, not just for the 30 minutes, but in those 30 minutes it feels really good and miserable, and really good. So those are my little things in the details from this week. And thank you for listening to them. Now to get into the meat of today's episode, we are going to talk about black and white thinking with OCD. With OCD, there can be points in your life that this is more prevalent, or at least that you are more aware that you do think very black and white. And when OCD is kind of running your life and kind of making you live a life that you're not really wanting to live, you just feel like you have to for some unknown cosmic reason, then it can be scary to change. But where that resistance to change is, that's where the freedom is going to come from, is kind of turning and facing that resistance and what the change that feels so scary. And the all or nothing thinking can be damaging to your recovery. It can be damaging to just your overall fulfillment and the freedom that you feel to live a life that you would be excited to live. There's so many things that I want to break down in this, but I'm going to start with just breaking down what the black and white all or nothing thinking really means and what that actually looks like day to day. So what is black and white thinking? And how does it damage us, or how can it feel damaging and be damaging? Black and white thinking is when you almost have these kind of rigid rules of how life needs to be and how you need to feel at all times, and with all things that you are, and with all experiences, and how you feel with things that you choose, like a career or a partner or a religion or a city you live in. Sometimes it can feel like there's rules assigned to how we have to feel about those at all times in order for it to be correct, or in order for us to be in the right place that we're supposed to be. And that can come from a background of growing up believing that God has made a plan for you. And what if we ruined it? And what if we're in the exact wrong place of this plan and that it's so fragile that we ruin everything? That is a big thing for me that can feel daunting, is like, what if I chose all of the wrong things and somehow now I'm not in the spot that I need to be? And that can be an obsession. And that obsession can start when maybe you feel like you don't love your work, when you don't feel excited to go out and hit the town or to go visit a park next to you, and you get bored maybe of the city you live in. Sometimes people just get bored of the city they live in for a while, so they want to go travel for a little bit and come back. Or sometimes you just get bored and then a couple months later, it's summer again, things feel exciting, you feel better, you go out, you're excited again, and then maybe get bored again. And maybe it just kind of goes back and forth. With OCD, it can feel like there's less room for you to go back and forth, because you think that if you feel bored with the town that you live in, that means that you're not supposed to be living in that town, that you need to get out. And it can be exhausting to be constantly ruminating about, should I be here? Should I not be here? Sometimes, like in some life circumstances, there are times where you're like, maybe I kind of want to move. And then you go through kind of maybe a thoughtful or a reflective couple of weeks, or maybe even like a couple months, where you're kind of weighing out the pros and cons. You're able to think about things a little bit more clearly and make a decision based off of, I'm just going to trust my initial thought of maybe I need to get out of here for a little bit. Or maybe you just know that you kind of go up and down with wherever you live. So maybe you just trust yourself that you can ride it out and then you'll find this place exciting again. But again, with OCD, that vetting process, that process of making a decision, doesn't feel like you're making a decision. It feels like there's doom and gloom. It feels more, there's no right answer, and is so stressful because you kind of want something to just tell you exactly what to do. You don't want there to be any uncertainty with if you're in the right place or the wrong place. And it might be because deep down you really care about having a good life. You want to be obedient to the universe or to God or whatever it is. And so sometimes OCD can get nervous and scared that you're not going to fulfill something. So it can so it can send you thoughts and send you doubts over and over and over again, being scared that you're not in the right place and that you need to move. And it's not a sound vetting process because, again, there's so much anxiety and innate trust with yourself and with your decision making. And that can be really challenging. It doesn't feel good to not trust yourself. It doesn't feel good to not trust, period. It feels good as human beings to trust each other and to trust ourselves and to trust God or trust something bigger than us. And it's okay to lean into that trust. It can feel hard and almost wrong to trust something or to make a decision and not know for sure. And it can feel almost irresponsible to make a decision and not feel 100% sure that it's the right decision. So it can hinder us and it can keep us from things that we want to try. It can keep us from maybe just taking a leap of faith and learning that we can trust our initial desires of something. Or maybe it just helps us lean more into our intuition and trust ourselves and what our souls are moving towards. So if we're not, ever doing anything or changing anything because we are scared to make any wrong decision, then we're going to feel stuck. And usually when we feel stuck, we distract ourselves a lot to take away from the pain of feeling stuck. And that can apply, and that same principle and that same fear of what if I pick the wrong choice or what if I'm going to be miserable can apply to anything. Like I said earlier, it can be your faith. You can be scared that you picked the wrong faith, and that it can be really scary. That can feel really scary because you're scared you're going to get lost or that you're going to be deceived in some way, and it can be really daunting. But the more we ignore the reality that we don't know for sure all of these things, we don't know for sure where we need to be. I trust in a higher being. I trust that I will be guided, but also in order for me to actually really trust that, I have to first trust the experience of life as it is right now, that things are uncertain and can feel uncertain. And maybe that's okay. Maybe it's not the end of the world, and maybe you're not doing something so incredibly wrong because you feel uncertain about things. It's uncomfortable to feel uncertain. I think even just facing and realizing maybe we struggle with that can be helpful in kind of moving us forward. And again, with OCD recovery, it's not about figuring out exactly what OCD is and what OCD isn't, because sometimes that can become an obsession where it gets super nitty gritty and confusing, and it feels like everything's OCD, so nothing's OCD, and it just gets really weird. So as a reminder, you could actually have a deep desire to become something else and do something new with your life. But the process that OCD will give you is rumination, is going over the same things over and over and over again, not trusting and not taking real intentional action. It's more fear-based than trust-based, and it'll also give you really big extremes. So that's kind of another hint, at least for me, when I know it's kind of OCD, is when it feels like I have to do it immediately, and when it feels like the stakes are so high, where it's like, if I don't quit my job now, my marriage is going to fall apart. I'm going to lose everything that I have. I'm going to become an evil person, and just like all the worst of the worst. I don't know what my right career path is. I don't know 100% for sure. But I can trust maybe an initial feeling. I can trust and take a leap of faith, maybe. And maybe I learned that I actually was fine with my other job. And OCD might come back and say, well, how come you weren't sure before? How come we didn't already know that? If you really knew yourself, you would know that that you should have stayed at this job. Like, how did you make that mistake? And that's where you realize what OCD is so not okay with, and that is the uncertainty, and it does not want to accept the experience of trust in life and making a mistake. That's really scary to your OCD. So it's not going to want you to take any leaps of things, or it's not going to want you to make any errors or mistakes. So it's going to kind of hold you back maybe. And after doing that for a long time, you can start to not feel like yourself. You can start to feel kind of like you're caged in. You can feel like a shell of yourself eventually, because you don't even want to do the things that you're doing. You just feel like you have to. You can sometimes develop like decision paralysis, where I think that's the right word, but when you don't want to make any decisions, and when you have such a hard time deciding anything, that can make you feel so much less confident in your ability to move through life. And also, it's just going to keep you in a place of living the same thing over and over and over again. But really, you are craving movement. You're craving progress in some way. You're craving learning something new. You're craving change. But there's a part of you that is scared of change, so you kind of resist it. So when we unconditionally accept the human experience of, we don't know for sure. We don't know exactly what's intuition, what's not intuition. What if we get lost? Like, then we get lost. Then we're not sure. Like, I don't know what to tell my OCD sometimes when it's begging for this reassurance of everything is exactly the way that it's supposed to be. Deep down, I believe that it is, because I believe that we have something, because we have someone who is in control, who very much loves everything that is created and has a plan and a purpose. But also, I don't always know what that is. And so that's where the trust comes in, of just giving that up. Like, I'm not going to try to figure out what everything is when I don't have the information, because that's just torture. And it's also a lack of trust in something. So I guess overall, the experience of black and white thinking, all or nothing thinking, can be caused by a lack of unconditional acceptance, which you hear a lot in OCD therapy and recovery, and is this acceptance of exactly what's happening in your life, putting yourself kind of back into your real life instead of being stuck in your head all day, or being stuck in a place where you're trying to justify everything. You're trying to make yourself feel better. You're trying to reassure yourself, and instead being like, this is what's happening to me. This is my reality. This is my circumstance. This is how I feel towards it. And so I'm going to decide this, and I'm going to move towards that, and let's see what happens. It's something that also helps with this way of thinking to minimize, I think, the black and white thinking, or to at least have more of a handle over it, is to be open to change and be open to mistakes, which I have an episode. I think I have 1 or 2 episodes about making mistakes and how sometimes we can really be scared of that with OCD and just in life. I think being open and embracing mistakes as a part of life that was meant to happen. And so we shouldn't be scared of making mistakes because I believe it was meant to happen. There's something good in that for us. That's worth it to make mistakes. Opening yourself up to change. And if you feel resistance towards change, be curious about that. Lean into that. Not to become more resistant, but lean in as in be curious and try to understand or at least face that resistance and learn to soften and to let it go and to open and to welcome new things into your life. What I've learned is when I've been through a lot of hard things, it's way easier to harden and to close and to not receive anything more because I'm like, okay, I can function like this. I'm safe like this. I know how to live life like this. I'm going to stay this way. But eventually I become a little bit miserable and I start to suffer because I'm not opening myself up to new experiences and to change and to the full experience. It can be a hard practice and a hard thing to do to soften and to open slowly over time. But eventually, I feel like when that happens, and this is like mentally, sometimes and emotionally how it can feel. It's like I'm stuck. I feel muggy. I feel stuck. But eventually, it's like quicksand, where if you're moving a lot, which I don't know if this is true, but I feel like I've seen this on a million movies. If you're moving a lot, then it's going to take you faster. But if you just open your hands, release the grip, open your heart for a second, and relax, what used to feel like mud and muck and, almost like tar and sticky can start to turn into what kind of feels like pillows and clouds. Like what I would imagine if a cloud actually wasn't, what an actual cloud is, you can't lay on it, obviously. But if a cloud was able to hold you, how it looks like it could hold you, that's how it can feel when you start to surrender and open yourself to change. That tarry sensation, that emotional, like being weighed down constantly can turn into almost being held on a cloud. I know that kind of sounds crazy, but that is how it feels to me. That's like, for me, a good representation of how that feels emotionally inside. When you start to lean in more and surrender and trust that things are for a reason, really believe that your life, that where you are at in your life is not a mistake. It's not like some random, at least what I believe is it's not some random thing. And some people might find purpose in that, but I think we can create our purpose, but also some of that creation is by trusting that your life is not a mistake, that you're not just random. You very much matter, and you have so much worth innately just by being alive. I believe God has like given everybody a purpose, and he speaks it, and what can feel nice with OCD, at least for me, was helpful is to really trust him and to trust whatever that means, whatever that exactly means, I don't know, but to leap into that and to trust that and at least have a friend in that, because life is really hard. And sometimes emotions, when you struggle emotionally and mentally, you can feel really alone. You can feel really alone in your own head. And so for me, that's why I talk about prayer. It can feel helpful just to trust that someone's listening and that someone understands and that you were never meant to face everything in this world alone. And sometimes it might feel like we are supposed to. And sometimes it feels like our life is a mistake and we are a mistake because how can we feel bad or how can we struggle with this so bad? But you're not a mistake. Your life inherently has so much worth and beauty and purpose. And I also believe that like our God does not find the details of our life boring. He's not bored of your life. He's not bored of you. Sometimes it can feel like we're too lost or that we're too broken or recovery's taking too long. We've had too many intrusive thoughts. Whatever it is, sometimes we can feel like that we'll never find or we'll never be home or in the right place or that we'll never belong. You just being alive means you belong. Inherently, I believe that. I also think with, our own personal development and our own personal journeys of, what you're going to believe in and put your values and faith in and morals and whatever, how you structure that is how you're going to find that meaning. But I think inherently, because of how we were created, we have purpose. Okay. I found an older Dear Abby that was from January, and I don't remember if I answered it or not, but I have it marked as I hadn't answered it, and somehow I skipped over it. Forgive me if I've already answered this, but I wanted to answer it because it's a good question. And it's also, yeah, we'll get into it. It says, Dear Abby, how do I know if some of my anxious thoughts may be OCD symptoms? I have previously experienced pretty severe health anxiety that led me to follow very strict diets out of irrational fear that food would make me sick. I definitely struggle with wanting to double check that my door is locked or that my stove is turned off if I don't remember if I've done so. And most recently, I have started to experience paranoia at night if something seems off. I am pretty religious and I do believe in good and bad energies. So if I hear a noise or feel a weird vibe, it can sometimes send me into a spiral and keep me from sleeping. I have been diagnosed with generalized anxiety and that is thankfully much better managed than the past, but recently I've been noticing these sorts of behaviors again. First, before I answer anything or at least share my thoughts, just want to say I am not a licensed therapist. I'm not a professional in any way, like at all. So I wouldn't trust what I say in terms of like diagnosis or anything, but I do want to talk about the things that you've talked about and also give some advice for if you're wanting to be if you want to find out if you have OCD or not. First thing I'll say is if you're curious if you do have it, I think that's a sign that maybe the generalized anxiety disorder diagnosis helped for a little bit let me rephrase. The recovery process and the therapy or, what you've practice in terms of just for generalized anxiety, that can be helpful and it can help for a while. But if you have OCD or something else, it won't fully feel like that's where it ends. And so there's going to be some gaps when you're listening to a therapist talk about it or a doctor talk about it. You're going to feel like there's gaps of like you might feel like it's more than what they're saying. It's a little bit different. Like it's not always, you don't always feel anxious. It can sometimes just be repetitive stuff, stuff like that. But also, if you are really curious, NoCD, they've sponsored the podcast before, but NoCD is a great app and you can get a test and you can, like your first appointment, they'll kind of test to see if you have it. So they'll ask you, it's like a questionnaire. And you'll meet with them and they will diagnose you with OCD or just let you know that they don't believe that you have it. Definitely fight for the right diagnosis because that does change everything with disorders like this. Because if you're getting help for just generalized anxiety, it won't be the same as when you get specialized OCD help. And especially when it's personalized and it's specialized. That to me made all the difference in the world because it wasn't generalized. It was like, it's more specific and I felt understood when I learned about it and when I heard my therapist talk about it and when I'd watch a YouTube video about it or listen to someone like me, like a podcast, talk about it. I'm like, okay, wait, that's sounding really familiar. So fight for a diagnosis. You really do deserve, especially if you've been struggling, you deserve to get good help. And that's cater to you. If you're curious, I would contact an OCD or some OCD specialist or OCD therapy near you to see if you can get a diagnosis. Also, there's a couple things that you had mentioned about being anxious about. Health anxiety can be really hard and that's more physical, where it's like every sensation in your body, somehow you think it means that you're dying or that it is a sign that you're dying immediately or in the next couple weeks. And then you feel like impending doom, like it's definitely going to happen. But those feelings are normally wrong, but also in the moment, it's not going to matter if it's right or wrong because it's extremely uncomfortable and it's really scary. Something I did was in the Dare book, which is for, I don't know if it says for OCD, but I think it's just anxiety. I don't remember. It's been a while since I read it, but they talk about the concept of kind of egging it on, the anxiety by responding. Like sometimes if my heart would be beating fast, I'd be like, okay, that's all you got, like beat faster. Come on, give me a heart attack then. Because even just saying it, I was scared that it was going to make me have one. Like for some reason, if my brain thought it, then I would have one. And so I would do kind of exposures before I knew what I was doing to like egg it on, because then your brain got less and less scared of those initial thoughts and that initial anxiety that came up. So that sometimes can really help. I don't know if you want to try that. Also, not a therapist, As far as like checking to see if the stove is off, something that can coincide with that is like this hyper responsibility, but it almost becomes like you don't trust your senses anymore. Then if you somehow saw something was off and then you left and you got a feeling that it was on, then it would be all your fault if something happened, even though your senses told you and you saw that it was off. And that experience sucks. And it's so hard because you want to do the right thing. You care about stuff, but then also you're like, but I don't want to keep feeding my OCD and keep checking over and over and over again because I'm teaching my brain that I can't trust my own senses. For most of the time you can. Every once in a while, sure, you're kind of brain hiccups and you forget something, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen 100% of the time. But also that's enough to get OCD to be scared that every time you see something, it might not be exactly what it seems. The last thing that I definitely relate to you on is being scared at night, because I'm the same way. Like I've always been like that ever since I was a little girl. I was always scared at night, and like any vibes, I was like really sensitive. And I've had to do exposures on that kind of thing before because it can become a really big obsession for me. That being said, it's 100% possible to get to a place where even if you feel scared for a second, you kind of lift your chin up and you're like, I'm going to be okay. No matter what, I'm going to be okay because I believe that I will. And that's enough to protect me. I'm not going to give energy or even thought. I'm not going to give my energy to anything but things that make me feel good and things that I believe are good. I almost kind of stubbornly refuse now to get back into that bad of a place because I know that I'm protected in all ways, like even just for my own anxiety, if that's what that is. So I can be scared, sure, but that's kind of where it ends. And I just am like, I feel scared, but I trust. And I think that's enough for me to have something be diffused and to where I don't go into that whole spiral because I don't know what that is. I don't know if I'm just anxious. I don't know what is, maybe something is kind of weird. I don't know. So that's my advice. I mean, this was again a couple weeks ago. So I don't know what has changed since then, but I wanted to answer this one because I skipped over it and I felt bad. I hope any of that was helpful. Thank you for writing in a Dear Abby. You guys, I always need more Dear Abby. So if you want to support, or if you want to be in the next episode, or if you want to send in a Dear Abby, go for it. You can text or call the number in the description below and leave a voicemail, or you can just send a quick text message, or you can DM me as well and I will answer it on the podcast. And it can be about anything. Ask me anything. That's going to be it for today, you guys. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Dear Abby. If you want to support the podcast, you can leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can also go like, subscribe, comment on YouTube as well. I post all my podcast episodes on there with video if you want to check that out. If you want to go above and beyond, you can always post about my podcast. You can tell your friends about my podcast. That would be much appreciated, but no pressure, but much appreciated. Thanks again for listening. I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Love you guys. Bye. 우회전 taking a ride to journey. 눈치 보면서 들어가야 할 때 찾아 나머진 바빠 개설레임 바꾸는 사람